Hello everybody, this is Tommy here, and today I am back on my YouTube channel. Now I'm going to be doing a new topic that you guys have never heard of before, and this is called TMCU. I will be creating my very own MCU and my version of how I would do things. So anyway guys, without further ado, let's get started with the video. So the first project is called the Invincible Iron Man. This begins off with Phase 1, and this is Phase 1, Chapter 1. Now this is how Iron Man looks, and basically it's his costume design. Now this is what the movie focuses on. So we focus on the origin story of genius billionaire playboy philanthropist Tony Stark. He has taken over the company of his late parents, Marie and Howard Stark. The company is called Stark Industries, and it focuses on him taking over the company after his parents' death. However, he's kidnapped by a terrorist organization known as the Ten Rings, which is led by their leader Li Qing-lin, who is a deadly warrior and assassin known as the Death Dealer. He is the commander-in-chief of the Ten Rings army in Afghanistan. Meanwhile, Tony gets help from fellow hostage Dr. Ho Yinsen, who sacrifices himself to let Tony escape. Tony eventually returns home, but learns that Obadiah Stane, who is his business partner, has been working with the Ten Rings and selling weapons to them in order to convince them to kidnap Tony Stark so they can take over Stark Industries and rename it as Stane Industries. However, Tony successfully defeats Stane before announcing to the public that he is Iron Man. He begins dating his assistant Pepper Potts, but however there is a cliffhanger ending where we then cut to a young boy writing on his journal of his plans to kill Tony Stark. Now here is the full cast. We got Robert Downey Jr. returning as Tony Stark, Don Cheadle plays James Rhodes instead of Terrence Howard, Gwyneth Paltrow plays Pepper Potts, Jon Favreau as Happy Hogan, Paul Bettany as Jarvis, Leslie Bubb as Christine Everhart, Clark Gregg as Phil Coulson, Sean Toome as Dr. Ho Yinsen, Samuel L. Jackson as Nick Fury Jr., we'll get to that later on in the video, and for the villains we got Jeff Bridges as Obadiah Stane, who becomes Ironmonger at the end of the film, and Andy Lee, aka Li Qing-lin, aka the Death Dealer, and lastly, Death Dealer second in command, Faran Tahir as Raza. Now the post-credit scene with Nick Fury introduced in the Avengers initiative to Tony Stark stays the same, although in this credit scene we are introduced to the true leader of the Ten Rings, named Zhu Wenwu, who is a sorcerer known as the Mandarin. He is angry over the deaths of the Death Dealer and Obadiah Stane and plans on killing Tony Stark once and for all. There really aren't that much deaths in the film, however Ho Yinsen, Obadiah Stane aka Ironmonger, Raza, and the Death Dealer all die. Phase 1 Chapter 2 is titled The Incredible Hulk, and this is the second chapter in Tommy's Marvel Cinematic Universe. So the movie starts off in 2005 and it focuses on Dr. Bruce Banner, who is forced on the run from the US military. He was recently injected with gamma radiation that turns him into a big green monster known as the Hulk. 3 years later, he is now living in Arizona and saves a young boy, an orphan named Rick Jones, from an explosion before escaping to Culver University. However, the two of them are attacked by Emil Blonsky, who is hired by General Thaddeus Ross, the same guy that accidentally turned Bruce into the Hulk. However, the two escape to California and take refuge with Bruce's cousin, Jennifer Walters, who is a lawyer. They have reunited with Bruce's ex-girlfriend Betty Ross before being led back to Culver University by Dr. Leonard Sampson, who is Betty's current boyfriend. However, he set them up as a trap and we also meet Dr. Samuel Stearns, who betrays the group and turns Emil Blonsky into the Abomination. However, before the final battle can occur, Thaddeus Ross then captures Jen, Betty, and Rick, while Bruce turns into the Hulk and fights the Abomination in Harlem. However, he defeats the Abomination and turns him over to the military, while Bruce reconciles with Betty and Rick as the trio head back to Arizona, while Jen returns to California where she notices that her eyes are green. So instead of Edward Norton playing Bruce Banner, I got Mark Ruffalo playing Bruce Banner, while Liv Tyler plays Betty Ross, and Lucas Till plays Rick Jones. Rosario Dawson plays Jennifer Walters, who would later become She-Hulk in the franchise. Now for the villains, Tim Roth plays Emil Blonsky, William Hurt plays General Thaddeus Ross, R.I.P. to William Hurt, Adrian Pastar plays Colonel Glenn Talbot, Ty Burrow plays Dr. Leonard Sampson, Michael Douglas plays Dr. Hank Pym, Samuel L. Jackson plays Nick Fury Jr., Tim Blake Nelson plays Dr. Samuel Stearns, who will eventually become the leader. Peter Mensa plays General Joe Greller. Christina Calbot, plays Major Kathleen Spar. And lastly, Pedro Savin plays the tough guy leader, who we see at the beginning of the film. So Samuel Stearns has just become the leader in the post-credit scene, and this is his design. He forces Hank Pym to inject him with Bruce's blood, and becomes the leader as he swears revenge on Hulk and plans to defeat him for good. Now meanwhile, in the mid-credit scene, we see Tony Stark and Nick Fury Jr. approaching Thaddeus Ross at a bar, and the two tell him that a team is being put together, and Ross says, "Who's we?" Now here are the list of everyone who dies in the film, and although Rick Jones' parents do not appear, they are mentioned. Now Tough Guy Leader, Dr. Leonard Samson, General Joe Greller, and Major Kathleen Spar all die in the film. So Phase 1 Chapter 3 is titled Budapest, which is a solo film that focuses on Black Widow and Hawkeye. Alright, so the movie mainly focuses on the origin story of Natasha Romanoff, who is the Black Widow. Her sister is named Yelena Belova, also known as the White Widow, throughout the film. We mainly follow during their time in the Red Room until Natasha kills General Dreykov, who is the leader of the Red Room, and is also the main antagonist of this film. He also has a son named Taskmaster, and Natasha is now a target of the secret government agency known as S.H.I.E.L.D., which was introduced in the second film. However, she is rescued by Clint Barton, aka Hawkeye, who was assigned to kill her but refused to. The two went into hiding in Budapest for the next 2 years, but however Nick Fury arrives and warns the two that the Red Room was never actually destroyed and that Dreykov is still alive before being tasked with hunting down Taskmaster and ending up in hiding with Fury's ally named Rick Mason. However, soldiers of the Red Room arrive and attack the four, but Rick escapes while the trio meet with Yelena, Natasha's mom Melina, and Natasha's dad Alexei Shostakov, aka the Red Guardian. However, they are all captured by Dreykov, who reveals that Rick Mason is actually Anthony Masters, aka Taskmaster, and that Rick Mason was actually a fake Elias. A fight ensues as the group tries to escape, but however Dreykov, his assistant named Madam B, and all the other soldiers of the Red Room are all killed. However, Melina sacrificed herself to let everyone escape, and the Red Room is gone for good before Natasha frees all the widows from their brainwashing, and Valentina Allegra de Fontaine, aka Madam Hydra, arrives and arrests Taskmaster. Fury and his men arrive, and Clint recruits Natasha into S.H.I.E.L.D. before the two say goodbye to Yelena, the Red Guardian, and the other widows. Now anyway guys, here's the main cast. Scarlett Johansson plays Natasha Romanoff, aka Black Widow, Florence Pugh as Yelena Belova, aka White Widow, David Harbour plays Alexei Shostakov, aka the Red Guardian, Jeremy Renner as Clint Barton, Rachel Weisz as Melina Vostokov, Samuel L. Jackson as Nick Fury Jr., Ray Winstone as General Dreykov, Julia Louis-Dreyfus as Valentina, Scott Adkins as Anthony Masters, aka Taskmaster, and Julie Delpy, aka Madam B, who is General Dreykov's assistant. Now, in the mid-credit scene, Valentina goes to Russia and ends up in hiding with Taskmaster. It turns out she never actually arrested him and is planning something big. Valentina then assigns the Winter Soldier, a mysterious assassin, to kill Natasha. Now, meanwhile, in the post-credit scene, Black Widow and Hawkeye are tasked by Fury to monitor two superheroes known as Ant-Man and the Wasp. Now, there really aren't that many deaths in the film, although General Dreykov, Madam B, and Melina all die. The fourth project in Phase 1 is titled Phase 1 Chapter 4, The Invincible Iron Man 2. Now, this movie is very similar to the actual MCU version, although it starts off with Tony fighting Michael Killian, aka Ghost, who is an engineer who works at the company AIM, also known as Advanced Idea Mechanics. However, he arrests Killian while having alcohol problems and balancing his life as both Tony Stark and Iron Man. Meanwhile, Anton Vanko, who is the main villain, is a mercenary known as the Crimson Dynamo, and is hired by the Ten Rings leader, the Mandarin, to kill Tony for him. During the final battle, Tony Rhodey, who is now War Machine, accidentally kills Vanko, while Justin Hammer becomes Titanium Man and fights the two before getting arrested. The movie ends off with Tony as he talks to Fury, Hank, and Janet about joining the Avengers, but instead he decides to become a consultant for S.H.I.E.L.D. and is congratulated as a hero along with Rhodey. Now for the cast in the film, Robert Downey Jr. returns as Tony Stark, and so does Don Cheadle, Gwyneth Paltrow, Jon Favreau, Paul Bettany, Samuel L. Jackson, and Clark Gregg, while Scarlett Johansson returns as Natasha Romanoff, Michael Douglas as Hank Pym, Michelle Pfeiffer plays Janet, while Leslie Bubb returns as Christine Everhart, Mickey Rourke plays Anton Vanko, Sam Rockwell as Justin Hammer, and Tony Leung plays the Mandarin. Gary Shandling plays Senator Stern, and Guy Pearce plays Michael Killian. Now, while the mid-credit scene with Phil Coulson in New Mexico and finding Thor's hammer stays the same, in this post-credit scene we see Justin Hammer as he is in prison before he is visited by the leader. The two form an alliance and escape the prison together and search for other potential recruits. And also, Anton Vanko is the only character who dies in the film. Now, the fifth project is Phase 1, Chapter 5, titled Ant-Man and the Wasp. So the movie focuses on Hank Pym as Ant-Man and Janet Van Dyne as the Wasp. It opens up in 1987 as they stop the Soviet Union from activating an atomic bomb you-know-what. In the present day, the two are working for S.H.I.E.L.D. and want to retire from being superheroes before being recruited for a mission by Fury to stop Darren Cross, who is the owner of Cross Technologies and Hank's former assistant at S.H.I.E.L.D., who left to start selling weapons. They try to prevent him from stealing the Pym particles and selling it to AIM, while also trying to create the Yellow Jacket suit to become a hero, which is what Darren wants to do. The duo, who are still Ant-Man and the Wasp, are aided by scientist Bill Foster, aka Goliath, as they defeat Darren and his men by blowing up Cross Technologies. However, Bill betrays Hank and Janet for getting him into this mess, which inspires Hank and Janet to resign from S.H.I.E.L.D. and form Pym Technologies with help from their daughter Hope Van Dyne. However, the movie ends off with them getting an invitation in the mail to join the Avengers initiative. Michael Douglas returns as Hank Pym, Michelle Pfeiffer returns as Janet, and also we are introduced to new characters such as Lawrence Fishburne as Bill Foster and Evangeline Lilly as Hope Van Dyne. Samuel L. Jackson returns as Nick Fury Jr., Clark Gregg as Phil Coulson, and for the villains, Corey Stoll plays Darren Cross, aka the Yellow Jacket, Jim Carrey plays George Tartalon, the guy who is working with Darren Cross, Martin Donovan plays Mitchell Carson, and Walter Goggins plays black market dealer Sonny Birch. Even though Bill Foster betrayed Hank and Janet, he continues working for S.H.I.E.L.D. and discovers stolen Pym particles. However, he decides to use them to upgrade his suit after it was damaged during his fight against the Yellow Jacket. In the post-credit scene, Hank offers Hope to replace Janet as the Wasp but she refuses before visiting a mysterious man in jail and offers him the chance to become the new Ant-Man, although he isn't sure, while Janet discovers that Hank is creating an artificial intelligence named Ultron. There aren't really that many deaths in the film, although Darren Cross, Mitchell Carson, and Sonny Birch are the only characters who die. The sixth project in Phase 1 is titled Phase 1, Chapter 6, Thor, God of Thunder. The movie mainly stays the same, however, the Enchantress and the Executioner, who are dating, aid Loki throughout the film. However, they secretly want control over Asgard for themselves. Now, after Thor is banished to Earth, we also see Hawkeye and Nick Fury Jr. return. They have more important roles, and the ending also stays the same, while the Enchantress and the Executioner leave Asgard and go to Earth to find Loki. Now, the cast is pretty huge, where we have Chris Hemsworth playing Thor Odinson, Anthony Hopkins as Odin, Rene Russo as Frigga, Jamie Alexandra as Lady Sif, we got the Warriors 3, Idris Elba as Heimdall, Natalie Portman as Dr. Jane Foster, Kat Jens as Darcy Lewis, Stellan Skarsgård as Eric Selvig, Phil Coulson and Nick Fury Jr. return, Maxi Milano Hernandez plays Jasper Sitwell, and also Clint Barton and Natasha Romanoff return. Now lastly, for the villain section, Tom Hiddleston plays Loki Lofthusson, who is still a frost giant, just like in the original timeline. Vanessa Kirby plays Amora the Enchantress, Karl Urban plays Scourge, aka the Executioner, Colm Feore plays Laufey, who is the king of the frost giants and Loki's biological father, and lastly the Destroyer, a mechanical creature, is played by an unknown actor. Although the Mad Titan known only as Thanos does not appear in this post-credit scene, the other, who is a loyalist of him, sends Loki to Earth as the latter finds Carl Creel in prison and gives him powers. Carl Creel turns into the Absorber Man as a result of this, and Loki mind controls him to escape prison, and the two are forced to work together in order to kill Thor. While searching for Loki on Earth, the Enchantress and the Executioner mind control Dr. Eric Selvig. There are only very few deaths in the film, as Laufey and the Destroyer are the only characters who die. The 7th project is titled Captain America the Super Soldier, and yeah. The movie mainly stays the same, although Werner von Strucker is the main villain and is searching for the Darkhold to give to his boss, Johann Schmidt, aka the Red Skull. The ending also stays the same, although the Red Skull dies instead of going to Vormir, and Nick Fury Jr. recruits Steve Rogers to join the Avengers after he was found by S.H.I.E.L.D. following his time in the ice for 66 years. Now, there's a pretty large cast in the film, where we have Chris Evans plays Steve Rogers, Amy Adams plays Steve Rogers' love interest Cynthia Glass, Dominic Cooper plays Howard Stark, we also have Chester Phillips and Peggy Carter appearing, and also Dr. Abraham Erskine played by Stanley Tucci. Sebastian Stan plays Steve's best friend Bucky Barnes, Andre Braugher plays Nick Fury Sr., who's actually the father of Nick Fury Jr., Neil McDonough plays Sergeant Dum Dugan, Derek Luke plays Gabe Jones, Jim Morita, James Fowlsworth, and Jacques Durney, who are also members of the Howland Commandos, also appear in the film as well. Nick Fury Jr. returns, and David Bradley plays the Church Keeper, who we see at the beginning of the film as he's protecting the Tesseract and the Darkhold. Spencer Treat Clark plays Werner von Strucker, Hugo Weaving plays Johann Schmidt, aka the Red Skull, Toby Jones plays Arnim Zola, Richard Armitage plays Heinz Kruger, and Anatol Tallman plays German General Roder. It is now the present day, and we see Arnim Zola, who now MODOK, is in Russia as he watches Bucky being frozen before he's approached by Valentina. Baron Wolfgang von Strucker, who is the grandson of Werner von Strucker, learns that his grandfather failed to find the Darkhold, but however he goes to Mount Wundagore and finds it before deciding to keep it as an artifact for himself. There are actually a lot of deaths in the film where Abraham Erskine, Heinz Kruger, Roder, Nick Fury Sr., Schmidt, Werner von Strucker, and the Church Keeper all die. The penultimate project of Phase 1 is titled The Avengers. So the project mainly stays the same, although Hank and Janet are a part of the team. Instead of it being called the OG6, it is called the OG8. Now, Rhodey plays a supporting role as he helps Fury motivate the Avengers team. Now, meanwhile, Glenn Talbot, Rhodey, and Rick also aid the team during the Battle of New York, while the Absorber Man fights Thor instead of Loki. Now, the movie ends off with... Now, also, the Enchantress and the Executioner help Loki in Germany before leaving to meet up with the other to talk about Loki and the Mad Titan Thanos. Now, the movie's ending stays the same, and that is basically the plot. So we kind of have a large cast here where we see the OG8, Rick Jones, James Rhodes, Nick Fury Jr. all return. Kobe Smulders plays Agent Maria Hill, while Phil Coulson, Glenn Talbot, Pepper Potts, Dr. Eric Selvig, and Jarvis also return and are all played by the same actors. Powers Booth plays Gideon Malik, Jenny Agutter plays Pamela Hawley, who are both part of the World Security Council. Maximiliano Hernandez returns as Jasper Sitwell. Evangeline Lilly returns as Hope Van Dyne. Now for the villains, we got Tom Hiddleston as Frost Giant Loki Laufeyson, Nathan Jones plays Carl Creel, Vanessa Kirby plays Amora, Carl Urban returns as Scourge, Alexei Denisov returns as the Other, and also the Chitauri alien race are played by unknown actors. Now, by the way, guys, this is the mid-credit scene, and this is the post-credit scene, although Josh Brolin plays Thanos from the start. There aren't really that many deaths, although Agent Phil Coulson, the Absorbing Man, and the Chitauri all die. And the final project of Phase 1 is titled The Fantastic Four. Now, we skip the origin story of the team as they deal with the aftermath of the Battle of New York. They also face enemies such as the Mole Man, who uses an army of prehistoric creatures known as Maloids to conquer the world. Now also we are introduced to the Puppet Master, an evil scientist who uses radioactive clay to control people in an attempt to conquer the world. The movie ends with the two villains teaming up to defeat the team and their allies, although Mole Man is arrested and the Puppet Master escapes while the Fantastic Four celebrate their victory, and the Thing begins dating Alicia Masters after accepting her as the Puppet Master's stepdaughter. Now this is the full cast over here, where John Krasinski plays Reed Richards, Emily Blunt plays Sue Storm, Zac Efron plays Johnny Storm, Alan Ritchson plays Ben Grimm, Liev Schreiber plays the AI companion known as Herbie, Gina Rodriguez plays Alicia Masters, Renee Olstead plays Johnny's love interest Frankie Ray aka Nova, Jimmy Smits plays Franklin Storm, who is Johnny's father, and lastly for the final two villains, and the only two, Harvey Elder is aka Mole Man is played by Jack Black, while John Malkovich plays Philip Masters, aka the Puppet Master. Now in the mid-credits scene, we learn the leader is forming a team of supervillains. He's told by one of his scientists, the Fantastic Four, defeating their villains, which confirmed that the leader was the mastermind and sent the villains after the Fantastic Four as he saw them as a threat to his plan of potential world domination. However, he alerts the scientists that the two villains will not join the team since they are still alive and due to their failures in defeating the Fantastic Four. Now, Frankie Ray, aka Nova, has broke up with Johnny Storm, and she leaves Earth as she wants to explore the cosmos, and it's revealed that she's been the mysterious superhero Nova all along, which has been a huge mystery all throughout the film. So basically the only character that dies is Johnny's father, Franklin Storm, and that's basically it. And guys, that is it for Phase 1, and please stay tuned for more TMCU.